Amen. Good morning, everybody. It's so great to see all of you here together. Everybody gathered here together to be here and celebrating God, celebrating what He's doing in our lives. We're looking forward to what God is doing in this world, in this nation. But even in our own midst, we feel that God is present, that God is revealing Himself to us every day and revealing Himself to our families and our community. And we're just glad that we can do it together with you, that we can do it together as a family, that we can grow together with God as a family. Last night we were reminded at our event here about God's intention, God's hope for America. Actually, God using America to serve the world, how God wanted to plant us here to attend the world and to help lead the world, but we need a new awakening to our purpose, to our Creator, to reveal that God is with us and in the midst of us, and we should be living with Him and in our communities and in our families and sharing that with the world. And so today we are continuing to celebrate the blessing, continuing to celebrate family. We talk about for family today. We're for family. We're here to celebrate family and the foundations it lays for us, but also willing to fight for it, because sometimes, although we might love our family, they challenge us more than anybody else, right? Anybody else. Nobody challenges us like family, but also God wants family to really encourage us and support us. In Buddhism, it says supporting one's father and mother, cherishing wife and children, and a peaceful occupation. This is the greatest blessing. This is what God wants to give to us. Last night I was reading in Psalm 128 as it was sharing that the reward, the blessing for someone that's faithful, that walks with God, is that their wife and their children and their family would be fruitful, would be blessed. That their children would multiply, that their relationship with their wife would be blessed. When we follow God's intention for our own lives, we are blessed with this family, and we're blessed with the opportunity to attend our parents, to serve our wife and our husband, to raise up our kids, encourage them, and then watch them grow. And I loved in this song here the blessing for your children and their children and their children, thinking that what we do today, what we establish today, how we bring God into our lives today, what we overcome today, what we build and establish is for our children and their children and their children. For 1,000 generations, we can make a difference. We can establish God in this world, in our families, in our community, not just for the here and now, but for the ever after. And what a blessing that is, how joyful it is to think, hey, my kids can grow up with hope and believing that the world is better and believing they have opportunity, not struggling, not suffering, but what we do today can open up doors, that our kids can know a life that we didn't get to know, right? Can know opportunities that we didn't get to know. We can do that. We can give it to them, and we can make it better each generation. So we want to celebrate that today. I was just remembering this week as I was sitting here thinking of this message, I thought of sitting on my grandpa's lap. He had this nice round belly that was good for laying on, and we would kind of all lay up on his lap like 6 boys, right? Imagine us all laying there, and he would just regale these tales, tell us all sorts of stories. I swear he knew everybody and everything that ever happened, and he would just tell us stories, and we just loved cuddling up with him and hearing his stories. I remember that impression of me as a child. I remember the brownies from my Tante Mata. She'd drive down from Pennsylvania in this big old Cadillac, this giant Cadillac, and she'd come out and we'd all run and greet her, and she'd give us a couple tins of brownies. And she had made the best brownies I ever had. I've never had, but no, I take that back. Morel made some brownies that were amazing too. So those are the 2 best brownies, Tante Mata's and Morel's brownies. But I always remember and cherish those memories. I think of being in Germany with my Oma and Opa and going out into their garden, and this thing went forever. It was acres of land that was all the food, everything they could ever want. We're always harvesting that. At the end of the day, we're sitting in the sunset and like cracking beans and doing all sorts of, just taking care of their garden. It was such a beautiful thing. And I remember sitting back there and One night we looked out and I saw this sunset, and it was the most beautiful sunset. So I ran in and I told my Opa, my grandfather, and he ran out and he took a picture. And then a couple years later, he was a watercolorist, and he painted this beautiful painting for me, and I have that at my house now. And I just think about the beautiful memories that I received there. I remember the card games with my grandma. She's the most cutthroat card player you've ever met, and it doesn't matter if you're 4 years old. She's there to win. We love Grandma. We cherish her. Man, she's tough to play against. But I always loved playing cards with her, and I remember that still today. Actually, she always wants to play even cribbage online now. She'll play with you and beat you still today. I remember going for runs with my dad. He would come home from all his mission work, and he loved to run. I, to this day, hate to run. I don't like to run. I can run like 100 yards, and that's great, but beyond that, I hate it. But my dad loved to. He had Runner's World magazines. He was always getting new running shoes. But I remember I loved going for the runs with him. When he'd come back from his mission work, we'd go out, all 6 boys running with my dad, and I cherish those memories. And the long conversations with my mom, who always found a way to make time and listen to my stories. She told me when I was really little, the way she would put me to sleep was not by telling me stories, but she'd get me going on talking, and I would talk and talk until I fell asleep. And she would sit there and listen to all of that. Can you imagine that? She would listen to me and just heard me, and I remember and cherish that. And I cherish the moments with my brothers exploring this world, learning about the parks, setting some fires that we shouldn't have set, breaking stuff, breaking bones, all the grief we gave to my mom. I remember catching snakes and crawfish and bringing them home and showing my mom, who hated all that stuff. And I just remember exploring and celebrating life with them. I remember all the fights we got into, the bloody noses they gave me. I didn't give out as good as I got. I really got it good from them. I was number 5 out of them, so. But I remember those, and I cherish these thoughts of my family. And the Sunday dinners, when we moved to Minnesota, my dad was like, we got to have Sunday dinners. So over at my grandma's, all my aunts and uncles, cousins, I grew up seeing them every Sunday night. We all got together and we all shared a meal. And now my family, right? This is not actually all of them. This is years ago. Kyler's up there crying as like a 1-year-old. He hated taking those photos. We were all packing up from the cabin. We had to get out that day. And then they set up a photographer to take photos of us. And it was a terrible idea. It was raining. It was miserable. But we cherished these photos. And I almost doubled from this picture. We've grown a little bit. But thinking of that family and then thinking about what I'm establishing today. And I'm so grateful for the foundation that my family stands on. This morning I was just thinking about how lucky I was to grow up in a place where race and faith and all the different backgrounds never meant anything to me. It was just the people I grew up with. It was just auntie and uncle. It didn't matter what color skin. That was where I was raised. And I thought, coming back from last night, how grateful I am that I can share my kids this kind of worldview. And we're one family, that God just loves us all, and it's just different flavors of this beautiful concoction of humanity. And I thought, wow, that is so great. And I think of all those wonderful things I received, and it all came from God. It all came from my family's centeredness on God. And because of their love for God, their value of God, and seeing what God was trying to do, they pioneered this path and gave it to us as a family. And I think about my children. I think about my children's children. This morning, Morel was calculating how old I'll be when I'm a grandpa. She said, oh, Dad, when I'm 25, you'll be 50 years old, so you'll be a grandpa by at least 50, It's, oh, cool, all right. The little things we learn, we inherit from our family, and then we get to pass on, and that hope and that joy, and what we do today impacts that next generation. What we do today impacts our neighborhood and our community. And it impacts the world that these children are going to grow up in. And so when we center ourselves on God, we look for opportunities to bring people together. We look for opportunities to overcome our obstacles, our differences, our challenges. Because, as a matter of fact, it is challenging when you bring a bunch of different cultures together. It is challenging when you bring a bunch of people together and have them share life. It's a lot easier in some way to just pull yourself away from the world, but it's a lot richer, more beautiful when we come together and we find ways to love one another. So family is really important. Family is the most important thing. Finding that your family is the people God put in your life, and your extended family and your neighborhood. These are the people God placed in your life to teach you, to grow you, to share love with you, to give these opportunities. Sometimes doing things you don't like, but with the people you love, it makes it bearable. Father Moon said, when love reaches its climax, it explodes and then divides and then prepares to love again. When the family is created, it's just this pulling in of all this love, and then it explodes out into these kids and these grandkids and this new opportunity for love to grow again. And that's the opportunity we get to be involved in, this process of creation, of multiplication, that God's love continues to expand because we build up this energy. When we're interacting with one another, when we're laughing, when we're sharing food, when we're singing together, we're building up this energy that just explodes out into this world and multiplies that love. But everybody deserves this chance. I feel blessed. I feel really lucky. The family wasn't always perfect, but it was striving for something better. And I feel lucky that I was raised up in this family of love. And that I can share that with others and give them hope. Because a lot of people didn't get that chance. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. A lot of kids grow up in families where they don't know that they're loved. They question their value. They question if they really matter. A lot of spouses live constantly wondering when their spouse is going to leave them. Because they don't feel valued. They don't feel loved. They don't feel like they really matter. A lot of people are looking for this. And every one of us, I think, deserves to be loved, to be growing in that love. God's intention, as Father Moon always said, was that we were born in love, that we would grow in love, and we would return to the bosom of love, that this whole life was about just growing and expanding our hearts, that God would place us on earth as like this incubation of love, and we would just receive it and feel it and know, okay, this is what it feels like to be loved. This is what it feels like to receive love. Oh, this is how I give love. This is how I fix love. This is how we make love. This is how we recreate love, right? God intended this world, this creation, this planet as this place where it would grow and develop, and everyone deserves that. Far too many people don't get it, and they think, oh, family isn't the answer, and maybe I'll just pioneer my own path, I'll find my own way, and I'll make it work somehow. But God wants us to fight for the family, to look towards the family, to solve problems through the family. I believe that family is the only answer to the problems that face us today as a society. When we look at our world, when we look at community breakdown, when we look at drug abuse, when we look at depression, when we look at all these different afflictions of the heart, of the human condition, family is, well, it's often the cause of a lot of those problems, but it's also the only solution. It just made me think of this Amazing Grace song, once it taught his heart to fear, and then it also relieved his fears. God created families with the intention that it would create love and create this opportunity, but also the breakdown of family has caused a lot of fears and anxiety and hurt, depression, abuse. But it's only when we come back to the family, not when we run away from it, but when we come back and we fight for it and we start to invest in it and recreate it and start creating it in the way God intended, with God as a center, with husband and wife living for the sake of others, with them pouring out their whole heart to their kids, that we can finally solve the problems of this world. Solve the heartache of our neighbors and our friends. And you fighting for your family right now, you fighting for your marriage right now, you fighting for your kids right now is a fight for your neighbor. It's a fight for hope for humanity. Investing in them gives them the hope. They go, wow, if even he could love her, if they could fix that, maybe I have a chance. Maybe there's still hope.
we're giving hope, we're giving joy, and bringing that back for God. And it's the only way that we can finally solve this. In the beginning, right, we started with Adam and Eve, right? And they tried to get their love to work. It didn't work. But not only did their family fall apart, their marriage, but their whole family fell apart and made this model that we've adopted, right? Some people still talk about Cain and Abel as if that's a model for their family. Oh, I'm supposed to be like this, and I'm supposed to be jealous of my brother, and I'm supposed to undercut it. Like as if that was a model for how we were ought to live, right? Or as if the way Adam and Eve treated each other, blaming each other, was the way we were supposed to solve marital problems. This is what we inherited, but it wasn't the way it was meant to be. Noah was, the first one to try and restart that. But finally, Abraham was called, leave your family, leave all this behind. Grew up with the idol makers and probably pretty well off making his idols, selling them off. God said, hey, I want to bless you. So, okay, I'm happy to be blessed. Who's happy to be blessed, right? Well, sure. Okay, just leave your family, everything you know, your business, your home, your mom, your dad, leave it all behind. And then go wander in the wilderness. I got a place for you. Somehow Abraham's heart was caught and he decided to go and to follow God, to go and follow him, not for his own sake, but because of this right here, that God was going to bless his children that he didn't even have yet. But he trusted it. He said, Genesis 12:2-3, God spoke to Abraham directly. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse you. And all the people on the earth will be blessed through you. Leave this behind. Follow me. Establish your family. Establish this new place, and I'm going to bless the whole world through it. Because the model that you've been shown, what you're enacting right now is not going to bring joy. It's not going to bring happiness. It's not going to bring that blessing. But what I want to set up through you, it will. And not only for you, but for generations to follow. For your children and their children and their children, right? When you follow me, in your own heart, in your own mind, when you start to model your life after God's love, when you start to model your marriage after the way that God would treat your spouse, when you start to treat your children the way that you envision God would treat them, when you reestablish that line of vertical love and horizontal love, you give a hope, a chance, an opportunity for a new model to be out in the world to bless this world going forward. But there's some problems, there's some issues in your family, some things that get in the way. One is there's different generations, right? A lot of people like to just hang out with their own age group, the people that think like them, their peers. Right? They say this is kind of one of the most divided generations right now, where each group just kind of resonates with their own group, and there's an ability to, right? We're not all forced to live in the same little town, so, the 20-year-olds can hang out with the 20-year-olds, and they can look at the 30-year-olds and say they're ancient, and the 30-year-olds can look up to the 40-year-olds and go, oh, you guys are old, and just up like that, right? There's this divide, this division, and we live that in our own families. The kids have one way of thinking, and their parents, they were raised in a different school, right? They were raised in a different generation. They were raised with different values, with different, guidance. And you come together and you sit at the table and you start talking to each other and you go, man, this guy's an alien, like, right? He's so weird. Doesn't think right. We try and have conversations. We try and build connection, but we have this first barrier of just different generations. And what my kids think about is totally different than what I think about. What they're raised on is totally different. I know this because my kids always pointed out to me how old I go, I'm not old, guy. I'm pretty young. Man, Dad, this music is so ancient. I'm like, honey, it's from like 15 years ago. It's not that old. Right? But that's how they treat me, right? And I realized, hey, there's this difference. And for me to connect with their music and their, the stuff they like to watch, I have to also okay, I want to appreciate that. I don't want to just discard it right away because it is a little weird, but I want to appreciate it. Right? I want to connect with my kids and be relevant to them. But it's this challenge, right? We have this first challenge that your parents are way older than you and your kids are way younger than you and you guys are just from a different generation. And it's a challenge. That's an obstacle that you're going to face. Another obstacle is past hurts. You know, one thing I keep hearing about recently is realizing that as you're growing up, your parents were growing up too. Right? They're doing their best. They're figuring it out. They're like, oh, I'm 30 years old and I got to raise this 5-year-old and I don't exactly know what to do with them. And I'm still trying to figure out my career and get my house in order. And I'm still, I'm messing up at work. I'm messing up in my marriage sometimes. And I'm trying to teach them how they should treat others. But man, I just yelled and cursed out that guy over there. And we're growing up and then we're passing that on to our kids. And sometimes we slip up. Sometimes your parents slipped up. Sometimes they really messed up. Sometimes your brother really messed up. Sometimes some family member they irked you, they neglected you, they hurt you. And the hardest thing is it's the people that love that actually hurts you. There's some guy that I'm driving by cusses me out. Okay, I might even laugh about it. Okay, whatever, right? But if someone you care about, someone you love, hurts you, forgets about you, says something nasty to you, it really stings. And even they might have forgotten about it. Maybe it was just a bad day. Your mom was just having a bad day. She was tired and she didn't really mean it and she never even thought about it again. But you carried it on for 20 years. And it's still in your family. You sit down for that Thanksgiving dinner and you kind of look at her funny because you know what she said that one time. Or maybe multiple times. And that hurt still carries on. And we want to build these families, but we remember there was also pain. There was also hurt. How do we overcome that? This is another big challenge. Also just proximity. Right? When you're all the time together with people, things are going to come out. You're not always on your best behavior. You're not always in your best mood. Things are going to come up when you're crowded up on each other. I grew up with 5 brothers. We were crowded up on each other all the time. There was always an opportunity for a fight to break out. Right? Proximity. Well, these are the people that you love. These are the people you care about. Maybe even that's the spouse you chose to have in your life because you loved her so much. Just being around each other all the time is gonna open up a chance that sometimes you're going to hurt each other. Sometimes you're going to get tired of each other. Sometimes you're going to annoy each other. It's going to happen. It's kind of the challenge in this family, this hope, this ideal that we want to have. And they know you better than anybody else. Right? Your brothers and sisters, they know the exact word that's just going to tick you off, that's just going to set you off. And maybe they're just bored. They know if I do this, I'm going to get a rise out of him. Maybe your spouse, they know you so deeply. They know exactly what would trigger you. Just knowing each other. You know all the faults. You look at your mom and dad and you go, man, dad's always saying this and that, but I know him. I know he doesn't always live up to that. He tells me I got to do this, but I know Dad. I know that time he yelled out at that person, right? And it makes it challenging for us to love one another because we know each other so much. We might look at someone else and go, man, I wish my dad was like that dad, who we don't even know. We see him when he's out at a public event, right? Oh, he's a really nice guy. He's a really friendly guy. But we don't know that. And we're comparing against the people that we know inside out. So we have to realize, that knowing each other so deeply is also sometimes a challenge to loving someone. That's why it's so amazing to know that God fully knows us and he also fully loves us. He sees the worst part of our heart. He sees the most negative thought we ever had. He sees the secrets, but he still goes, wow, but I love you so much. What if we inherited that heart? And we see mom and we go, man, I know mom really slipped up and I know that she sometimes has this attitude and she's sometimes so anxious or sometimes so stressed out. But I love her so much because I know that stress where it comes from. I know that anxiety where it comes from. I know, when she gets, all crazy I know where it comes from. She really loves us, and she's trying, and she's trying to figure it out. And inheriting that heart of God that says, I love you, even though I know you. Even though I know you. So these are some of the challenges we face. So in Colossians 3:12, it says, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. They sound really beautiful, right, those words? Oh, I want to have that. I want to be that person. I hope people think of me like that. But man, when you try it out, it can be challenging to be clothed like that. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. This is what we're hoping for. This is what we're striving for. This is that original family that God planned, that He intended, that He envisioned. But we've got 6,000 plus, right? If we go into the real timeline of the world, right? We've got a lot of generations of mistakes and hurt. But we're called to a higher way of loving, a higher way of caring. That we should inherit this heart of God, that we should start loving, not centered on myself, not based on my own viewpoint of what it is, but God's viewpoint. To put on this humility, this love, this generosity, this care, this concern for one another, that we're going to wrap each other up, encourage each other, and spur each other on into greater and greater love. This is how we overcome some of these challenges of proximity, of knowing one another, of past hurts and mistakes. When we look at each other with humility, with patience, with kindness, we can start to see the roots. We can start seeing the pain. And we can start seeing ourselves as an answer to solve some of those problems, to find a way to bind us together in that perfect unity. So remember love. First off, in your relationship, in your marriage, in your family, in your parenting, in your parents, remember love first. You desire love. They desire love. You're trying to create love. Remember, love is the binding force. This is your ideal. This is what you're shooting for. Put that first. Remember that disagreement does not always equal hate. If you have a viewpoint and you share it at Thanksgiving dinner and someone else expresses a contrary viewpoint, it doesn't mean they hate you. It doesn't mean they hate everything about you. It's okay. Actually, in our families, it's going to come up. Even in the perfect marriage, it's going to come up. You're going to say, I got a great idea, and your wife is going to go, nah, doesn't sound very good to me. And you're going to go, ouch, I really was excited by that. And you just shot it down. But it doesn't mean she hates it or hates you. She just might see it from a different perspective, and that's okay. Remember that it takes time to heal. If your family was built up over 50 years, right? If you've been dealing with things for all that time, once you choose to forgive, once you choose grace, once you choose to be patient with them, once you choose to love again, to open that door, it's going to take some time to heal it. It's not an overnight event. It's not, oh, I forgive you, but also time will heal it. When you keep loving, keep kindness, keep cherishing that person. I was reading, Father was saying the other day, well, not the other day, 50 years ago, 1955 or something, right? He said one day, in 1,000 years, the idea of resentment, of sin, of shame, God even is going to forget all about that. Wow. All that pain, all that suffering that he went through, it's all going to be gone from his heart. One day. It'll take some time, but he's moving there. We're all moving there. And remember to always have the big focus. What is your aim for your family? What's your aim for this marriage? What's your aim for your children? What's that long-term focus? Sometimes we're so close and so in each other's way that we can't see that long-term picture. But when we remember, hey, our marriage, we're a team. As parents, we're a team. As kids, we're a team. Hey, we're a part of this group. We can start to love and recognize each other's strengths and forgive each other for our weaknesses. My brother doesn't have to have the same strength as me. It's okay that he always messes up with money, because he's also a really great listener, really patient. Whatever it is, right? We can work together to help each other, to love each other. So final few words, Hebrews 10:23, it says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you are towards seeing the day approaching." We want to give up. Sometimes we want to give up. Sometimes we just want to run away, and sometimes we need that space for a moment. But he's encouraging us. We've all been called by God. We've all been called out of where we were. Let's keep working towards this. Let's keep coming together. Let's keep spurring one another on, encouraging one another through love and good deeds. Finally, Father Moon was talking about in the family, it's not necessarily the good environment or good home that makes a family good, and it's not necessarily the bad family environment that makes a shabby house that makes a family bad. If it offers you peace and you are able to connect all things in your life to it, then it is a good family. It has a foundation of heart upon which the parents and children live for the sake of others. This is the original homeland for our memories and the source of motivation for all living. Therefore, it becomes a basis for determining our happiness in life. Our family, this place that God created us for, right? This unit that God created for us to grow into. This was a place where he was going to test us, where he was going to grow us, where he was going to invest into us. It was going to be challenging. It is challenging. It's always challenging as we're growing, as we're developing our hearts. But don't grow a calloused heart. Keep it open to change. Keep it open to development. Knowing that God is using it to perfect your heart, to perfect your love, to perfect your marriage, to perfect your family. Your children and your children's children will be better because you kept fighting, you kept giving, you kept living for it. And beyond that, brothers and sisters, this world is going to be better because you kept investing. You didn't give up. You didn't forsake your family. You didn't forsake your parents. You didn't forsake your children. You didn't just give up on them, but you kept believing in them the way that God believes in each one of you. This is a challenge, I know. But it's a challenge that I feel like we've been called to, that we have been equipped for. And today is a day when we can start renewing this. As it was shared last night, sometimes a great calamity offers an opportunity for a reset. And we've all befallen a great calamity in this last year. It shook us to our core. It challenged this world. But it's also an opportunity where we can say, today is a day. Today is a new opportunity and a new chance for me to love people the way God called me to love them. To start living out the principle, to start living up these true family values I always heard about, I always idolized, I always thought they sounded sweet, but they weren't for me, they were for some other guy. But today we can decide it's going to start in me. I'm going to start living out that love. I'm going to start being more humble. I'm going to be more patient. I'm going to be more kind, more forgiving. Because I cherish the hope that love can be. I cherish what my family could become. I cherish what my marriage could become. What God has always seen it to become. I cherish what my children could be. So I'm not going to give up on them, but I'm going to choose to love anew today. So let God's heart into all of yours. This is a hope not only for you, but a hope for your community, a hope for your neighborhood, a hope for this city of Mobile, a hope for this nation. To turn it around and bring it back to God, to reestablish its foundation, rooted in God, family-centered, bringing that love, that hope, that opportunity. That the whole world can look to us and go, wow, we could have that too. If we choose to turn our life over to God, if we choose to turn our hearts towards God, if we choose to center ourselves on God, we could have that too. So let's pray and thank God for this new opportunity, this gift that he gives us today of renewal, of hope, of love. Good morning, God, our heavenly parent. We're in your house today. We came, we showed up, God, and we received your word, and we want to hold it into our hearts, even though it was challenging, even though it challenged us. We want to really wrestle with it today. We want to trust in your word and what you are trying to do in our lives, what you are trying to do in this world, what you are trying to do in this nation. God, you want to reclaim this nation. Your heart aches for our brothers and sisters, for our neighborhoods, for our communities. God, your heart aches for us, for our own family, because you know what it could be. And you believe that it can still happen, and we want to trust in that. We want to have faith in your word and start to establish a family of love in our own neighborhood, in our own community. God, we thank you so much for being with us. We want to pray your blessing, your generosity, your care over each one gathered here this morning. And each one gathered here this morning also has been thinking about someone this morning, has been thinking about a loved one, a family member, a neighbor. And we want to share this love, this comfort to those people as well. That you can encourage them through us. That you can send love to them through us. That you can send hope to this world through us. God, we want to thank you for this new day of renewal. And I just pray that you can forgive us for our shortcomings and spur us towards our future. Your hope for us. God, we love you and we are grateful to you. And grateful for this chance, this new chance today to be in love. God, we offer this with all of our gratitude and all of our names as your holy sons and daughters, your most beloved children. And in your holy name, God, we offer this. Let's take a few minutes.